She used to think her brain just worked differently. Thoughts arriving in 3 directions at once, a conversation from last week suddenly louder in her mind than the one happening right in front of her. A room full of noise she couldn't filter out no matter how hard she tried. Doctors had a word for it, ADHD, and that word explained a lot. But it never quite explained everything, because there was another layer underneath, one she rarely mentioned to anyone, the way she sometimes knew things before they happened. A phone would ring, and she'd already know who it was and why they were calling before she picked it up. She'd walk into a room and feel instantly exactly what kind of day someone was having, even if they hadn't said a word. She used to think everyone experienced this. It took her a long time to realize most people didn't. She thinks back now to school, to teachers who called her a daydreamer, to report cards that said she had so much potential if she could just focus. What none of them saw was what was happening underneath the surface during those long stretches of staring out the window. Her mind wasn't empty. It was full, picking up on the tension between 2 classmates 2 rows over, the substitute teacher's nervousness before anyone else noticed she was new to the room, a heaviness in the air that had nothing to do with the math lesson and everything to do with something she couldn't have named at the time. For years, she tried to manage both of these things separately, as if they belonged in different boxes. The racing mind went to one doctor. The strange knowing, the sensitivity to energy, the dreams that felt more like memories than imagination. Those she kept to herself, or shared only with people she trusted completely, worried that saying them out loud too casually would make her sound unstable rather than intuitive. What she didn't know is that these 2 things weren't actually separate at all. A mind that can't stop noticing, that jumps from thought to thought, that struggles to filter out what's happening in the room, is also a mind that's wide open to more input than most people are built to process. Some of that input is noise, distraction, static, but some of it, for some people, is something else entirely. A kind of receptivity that looks a lot like distraction from the outside, but underneath is actually perception, working over time, picking up signals that most nervous systems filter out before they ever reach conscious awareness. This doesn't mean every distracted mind is a mediumistic one. It means that for some people, the very same wiring that makes focus difficult is the wiring that also makes them unusually permeable to what's happening around them, energetically, emotionally, sometimes beyond what can be easily explained. The racing thoughts and the sudden knowing come from the same root, a nervous system that doesn't have a strong filter between itself and the world. She remembers the moment this finally clicked for her. She was sitting in a waiting room, mind jumping between 4 unrelated worries, when a stranger sat down beside her, and she suddenly felt, with total clarity, that this woman had just lost someone. She said nothing, but minutes later, the woman's phone rang, and from the one side of the conversation she could hear, it was true. That same mind that couldn't sit still for 5 minutes had just picked up something invisible, instantly, without trying. Once she understood the connection, she stopped trying to force her mind into a single, tidy diagnosis and started asking a different question. Not, what's wrong with me, but what is this mind actually built to do? The racing thoughts didn't disappear. but she stopped fighting them the same way. She started noticing which thoughts were noise and which ones were signal. She started giving the sensitive, perceptive part of her mind somewhere to go, instead of leaving it tangled up with everything else. She started keeping a small notebook, not to organize her tasks, but to separate her thoughts into 2 columns. One for the mental noise, the loops and worries and half-finished lists that never seemed to end, and one for the moments that felt different, quieter but sharper, less like thinking and more like receiving. Over time, the second column got easier to recognize. It didn't shout the way the noise did. It arrived complete, all at once, and it was usually about someone else, not her. Not louder, just clearer, the way a single clear note stands out from a room full of static, once you know what you're listening for. If you've ever felt like your mind moves too fast for the world around you, and at the same time, like you sense things other people simply don't, this isn't a contradiction. It might be the same gift, wearing 2 different names. Your sensitivity was never something to manage away. It might be something to finally understand. I wrote a guided ebook exploring exactly this connection between ADHD and mediumship. For anyone who has felt both of these things at once and never had language for how they fit together. You'll find it linked in the description if this is a connection you've been sensing in yourself for a while. And if this story felt familiar, leave a like and subscribe, because every week I bring a new theme on emotional and spiritual healing right here.